Welcome everyone to this session. It would be Andrew already linked the Etherpad in the notes, and we will get to that in a second. Daria, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Daria. I'm a UX researcher at Wikimedia Deutschland with Wikidata team, and I'm helping to make Wikidata more usable and useful by doing interviews, surveys to get to know more about the problems, the needs, and how we can make it better.
Exactly. And one of the things we did was the ontology issue survey that I and Daria talked about in the opening session. So we asked people who are building applications on top of Wikidata's data what's hindering them the most from using Wikidata's data, and what's the most painful for them. And then we looked at, okay, what's underlying all of that? And it seems one of the big issues that are causing a lot of the ontology issues is that you're making an edit on an item and suddenly everything changes because it has influences on many, many other pieces in Wikidata. And today in this session, we want to dig a bit deeper into that and see what we can do about it. Daria, shall we start with the big questions we have?
Of course. First, we wanted to invite you to join the Etherpad, or also basically to be welcome to unmute yourself and talk here, because we don't want to just sit quietly and text there, right? If you want to. So this is the first question here. It's the current state. So how is it right now for you, and how does this affect your work? So this thing that Lydia just mentioned, the focus on local edits and having difficulties with getting access to a bigger picture of ontology.
Yeah, it would be amazing if you can either write in the Etherpad or unmute yourself here, and then we can see. Does anyone want to go first? Also, if you have particular examples of edits or so, that would also be very helpful. Even if you can't find the individual edits, just like the example would be cool. Please go ahead, Arthur.
There aren't a whole lot of issues like this that I've run across, but one of them that kind of bugged me was there was some change in the hierarchy involving businesses and corporations and companies, and I guess I had assumed, or back in 3 or 4 years ago, it was one thing, and then suddenly, like, the name changed. I don't even remember what happened, but it was quite confusing for a while about, was something a business or a company, and what's the difference and what's going on there. And so that's kind of deep in the organization. It's deep in the hierarchy, subclass hierarchy in Wikidata. It's under organization, under that, but and so I don't think it affected a huge number of items, but there are quite a lot that are, and finding uh, if you want to search for companies or something, it became trickier. So anyway, that was one that I ran into.
Can you maybe elaborate a bit on what made it more difficult? Because you didn't know, when making a new statement, you didn't know which one to choose anymore, or?
Right. So adding a new organization that was a for-profit organization. I wasn't sure whether it was a company or a business, and what was the difference, and that was why that distinction was made. Um, anyway,
Cool.
and then
Thank you.
searching for ones, with OpenRefine, you typically look for a. So I just typically just look for anything that's an organization, but if you wanted to refine it, how do you do that? I don't know.
Thank you. We're also getting some notes here in the Etherpad. Changes in subclass hierarchies can drastically impact counts of the number of instances of a given superclass. This makes it difficult to track progress when attempting to increase completion of a given type of data. Because you never know if you're not done with a certain task. Then
Yeah,
Epitosis is,
I can speak
please
to
go ahead.
this. Yeah, we have a set of recurring queries that we run at least once per year, and that we keep, that we monitor over time, and we record those numbers to see if we're seeing progress in terms of the number of items of different types. But then numbers can radically fluctuate up and down depending on changes in the subclass hierarchy. Suddenly, we end up with 5,000 new items that have nothing to do with what we're trying to count, and yeah, that is a problem from this point of view.
Thank you. Then Epitosis is rooting for the Wikidata Graph Builder as probably the best tool we have to visualize Wikidata's ontology, and that it could be advertised more and get a few more features and generate some love. If you haven't tried the Wikidata Graph Builder, I can also recommend it. It's pretty cool. Tukara, it's when I create an instance of exhibition, it's tedious to figure out which exhibition item is the correct one, how the various classes with similar names differ. That seems very similar to what Arthur was also mentioning. That's tricky to figure out what the right one is to choose. Then Sky, unfortunately, there are many parts of Wikidata that I want to be able to use in practical work, but we can't completely address the semantics, so we end up building out many of our own entities and properties in a Wikibase instance, incorporating either the same as or see also relationships to Wikidata items, sometimes with a qualifier indicating where we differ. Then I was working with archaeological concepts when someone removed the class cave painting and changed it into a painting and added genre cave painting. I was not working on an automated reuse in this case, but I tried arguing in favor of the different contexts. Then Epitosis again, this is probably not a great discovery, but the same item viewed in different languages could have very different sets of labels and descriptions, which could leave users from different linguistic backgrounds to use them in very different ways. That's also a very good point. Olia, on experience creating a tourism application to distinguish cultural heritage from natural heritage is, to say the least, tricky. So maybe we can come back a bit to when you're making an edit and you're trying to classify, for example, a new item, or someone else is doing that, without looking at the bigger picture. Where in the hierarchy the new item fits in, and things like that. Where do you see the consequences of that? So far we definitely have the it's harder to figure out what to add as a statement value. Also, feel free to unmute and talk. Okay, we have some more here. I believe we need more comprehensive thematic documentation for each domain-specific field on Wikidata. It would be beneficial to have a comprehensive catalog of all the important properties on Wikidata. And I'm trying to build one on this user page. Then part of relationships can make it queries more difficult. Yeah. Trying to find the stations of a subway system in a city can be tricky if it's and Nikki has commented in the chat. We've had problems where people's query will start including lots of weird results, finding the edits and statements that cause it is really hard to find. And sometimes even the English and British English labels are totally different. That is not good. And Nikki, just to clarify, when the English and the British English label are different, just like Camilla was saying earlier, then they can be used in very different contexts, and in one language makes sense and in the other not. Yeah. Cool. Trying to see if there's anything new here. Yeah. So it's hard to argue with Wikipedians why concepts need to be disambiguated or whether one does not need to prioritize based on the focus of the item, I guess. Yeah, and this is, as I'm sure you know, in part caused by the different directions that Wikidata and Wikipedia are pushing into, right? On the one hand, we want more clear delineation of the individual concepts on Wikidata, while Wikipedia, for understandable reasons, tries to cover similar topics in the same article and prefers not to split as much as Wikidata does. Of the things that do work well, autocomplete with the immediate display of an item's disambiguating descriptions. So this is about descriptions helping to pick the right item when making a new statement, I understand. If they are written in a good way. And then Epidosis is writing, I remember that one of the points, what are we doing, in yesterday's introduction was creating a separate section for ontology-related properties, separating them graphically from the other statements, making them more evident would somehow help, in my opinion. yeah. And then the comment for the earlier point is, of course, descriptions can be great in helping to disambiguate, but it doesn't help if they are conflicting between languages and do not actually describe the same thing. All right. What else do we have? And oh yeah, in the same sense, as the previous points, sometimes items and properties drift in semantics along the time and space. And somehow related different site links of an item could be talking about not exactly the same concept. Yeah, this is again related to Wikipedia trying to cover more in the same article. Cool. Daria, do you have more questions about any of those, or should we move on to our bright future?
I'd say let's move on to the bright future.
All right. So now that we talked a bit about the problems, we were thinking, let's imagine the perfect bright future, impossibly good future. How would things look like? So how would we not have the case where people make problematic or wrong edits because they are having a hard time to see the big picture of the ontology? Yeah, again, feel free to unmute or add your thoughts to the Etherpad section. Yeah. And yes, Andy, exactly. This is Pink Ponies for everyone. For those of you who are familiar with the Pink Pony sessions that we're running. Daria, we should have called this the ontology Pink Pony session. Cool. Then we have so far a UI editor that implements entity schema something to guide the editor. Yeah. Another very good point, if we are automatically generating descriptions, then we would probably have less conflicts between the different languages. And I think Sarai is very, very happy right now with the suggestions about easy to use forms. Excited? Yes. Then we have my web browser tab would not explode after loading zillions of JavaScript gadgets when opening a slightly big item page. Yeah. Then Nikki is suggesting entity suggestions that make sense for the property would help people select the right item more easily. So basically making entities suggestion better to be more tailored. And search results. Okay, cool. Then we have the wiki projects would be more intelligent than dumpsters for a lot or too little text. It should be more data-driven. Whoever wrote this, it would be cool if you can expand a bit what you're getting at. Susanna, do you wanna talk about it? That sounds interesting.
I can just say like a generic wish. I don't know exactly what it would mean, but I know that by tinkering like we do, we could get some, I don't know, some kind of components that could maybe align with similar projects, similar questions. Just have more formal parts in the wiki projects. I think that would help a long way, but they would also, I think they are, even though they're quite similar, they are still quite different. All of them are just like notepads anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you very much. Okay, then we have the ability to link a constellation of items to a single Wikipedia article, modeling relationships that are described in the article with explicit item-to-item relationships in Wikidata. For example, I am not going to try to pronounce this because I will just embarrass myself. Describes a musical work and multiple distinct choreographies. Okay. And what we now have enabled with the site links to redirect isn't good enough for that. If that's indeed the case, it would be cool to understand what's still missing. Then Andy says academic researchers would praise the robustness of our ontology and ontologies. Yes, that would be amazing. A search that would only return ontology items instead of overwhelming with academic articles and artworks. Oh. At least scientific articles are possible to exclude from searches, but yeah, not pretty. But there is a special Elasticsearch keyword that you can use if you want. I would have to look up the documentation to figure out which exactly it is. But that probably doesn't help you with artwork because that's too deep a hierarchy. Okay. Then here, let's continue here. Part of the beauty of Wikidata is that it holds multiple ontologies and multiple views of how the world works at the same time. We can overlay check schema rules when we need to constrain to an ontology that aligns with our own view of the world for a particular query purpose. I don't know that we need to impose any major fixes. We just need more work from folks willing to put the effort into better ontology engineering. Okay. And Nikki's asking if I was thinking of has WB statement. And yes, that was what I was thinking of. And yes, it does not help when adding or editing statement, only when searching in the main search. It's true. Then, Melderick, we could mark some classes as significant and show that the class hierarchy at the top of each item, showing only those significant classes. And then earlier, we could link to an item in an exact and precise date / version or state. You can already link to a past version of an item. Or are you asking for something different here? Okay, I mean, as the item has their own life, maybe you'll want to set exactly the meaning at the moment you linked to the item. Yeah, okay. Cool. Did I miss anything from earlier? Searching. Okay, here to get back to the search and restricting it with has WB statement. And yes, it is true that scholarly articles have different instance of values, but we actually looked, and most of them are instance of scholarly article. So the vast majority would be caught this way, but not everything. That's for sure. All right. Camilla was earlier talking about visualizing the ontology with, for example, the Wikidata graph builder. Does anyone have thoughts in this direction? Nikki says, has WB statement also affects the search ordering? So the things you're expecting to find can end up much further down the list of results. I didn't know that. That's good to know. Thank you. Okay, then we have Susanna, I assume. Wiki documentaries and other websites made of the data reveal inconsistencies and can provide opportunities to fix the data. Yes, which is, I think, a really important point, and one of the reasons we did the data reuse days some time ago, because the reusers are feeling most of that pain when there are issues and suddenly things don't turn up the way they're expected. And of course, we feel that in query results as well when doing work, or as we were talking about, when selecting items to link to and new statements and so on. But yeah. And then back to the graph builder. Wikidata graph builder could be more useful with a few new features, which, for example, would be useful for persons trying to connect controlled vocabularies to Wikidata. A feature I would prioritize is adding 3 tabs containing all the properties, containing at least one of these properties, containing none of these properties. Cool. Susanna, to get more feedback from wiki documentaries or other websites, do you have any ideas how we can encourage that more?
I'm very intrigued about what you're asking. What do you mean? We are very interested in putting more effort into developing it further.
Oh, yes. So, I mean, when you're building wiki documentaries, you run into issues in the data.
Yeah.
And you're probably one of the people who goes back to Wikidata and just fixes it. That is not universal.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, but I think also that creating crowdsourcing, like easy editing interfaces, something very simple, like fix the like a pencil next to a title, or like if there's missing, I don't know if after today's discussions, whether adding more descriptions is a good thing or not, but but there could be, for example, an opportunity for adding descriptions, or changing labels, or seeing that the data is different between languages, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ordinary people should be encouraged to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Tuka says perhaps more people should use Susanna's user script that links from Wikidata pages to wiki documentaries. Oh, Tuka, do you want to say more about that?
I think wiki documentaries would have more value if it was easier for more people to see what the data looks like there. So it doesn't help so much that it displays it in a different way if not many people are having a look at it. And yeah, the simplest thing is to have a link from each wikidata.org page, the item page, to wiki documentaries, or also other tools. I don't know. We don't have a general way to do that, I suppose.
I don't think so. We have specific stuff for wiki documentaries and some others, but no general thing yet. Yeah.
I do have a user script that that creates a link to every MediaWiki page, like across the projects.
Even beyond Wikidata.
Yes.
Nice.
All Wikipedia. Well, they tend to switch on and off. I think they are doing something in MediaWiki, but they reappear after some time.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe you want to share this in the Etherpad.
Yeah.
But Tuka, if I understood you correctly, you were talking also about making something that independent of wiki documentaries and just more generic, right?
Yeah, so it would be like a formatter URL, list of those. I want to have available these tools with just one click.
Cool. All right. Then we have maybe a read-write permission system for protecting data model consistency. So this goes a bit in the direction we were talking about with moving ontology-related properties in their own section to help people understand that they're a bit special before we go with the full hammer of protecting it. Okay, and then Epidosis says, how about creating a small gadget which allows to visualize a small graph like Wikidata Graph Builder when adding instance of or subclass of? And Susanna added the gadget, the user script link. So you can try it for wiki documentaries if you want. And Nikki writes, I know of a script on another wiki which has a customizable list of links to show. I've been meaning to try adapting it. Ooh, Nikki, that sounds interesting. If you have links, maybe that can help. All right. As a next step, now that we have quite some cool ideas, maybe let's try to vote. And how we're going to do this, it's going to be a bit interesting, is by everyone gets 2 votes. And you can just, before a point here that you think we should explore further, I just add a plus there, and then we can dig into those a bit more. Or add a pony, that is also cool if you have a pony emoji. Rainbows also work.
Sorry, where do we add it?
So here at the beginning of the line that has a suggestion. Just oh, Andrew, yeah, here even you can even copy it. So just copy one. Let me show you what I mean. Just like this. If you think this is the thing, this is the greatest thing. And you get 2. I will give you 2 minutes to think about it.
You can also use your emoji not just to vote for the greatest thing proposed there, but also for some of the things that you probably want to discuss more today in the remaining time for this session.
We don't have clear winners yet, so I think your vote still very much counts. All right, do we want to start by looking at this 4 pony unicorn point here? Cool. So, which is about entity suggestions that make sense for the property, would help people select the right items more easily. I can copy that. I already done. Someone was faster than me. So, then the question that we had for this next step was, what are some first steps you can imagine that take us towards that? Like, what would we need to do to make this happen? And for this one, it sounds like we definitely need some technical changes. But is there anything not in the software itself that would need to happen? Like, would we need to change anything in the data to make this possible, or stuff like that? A suggestion to use Clever for the search. Okay. Nikki suggests show the most common values. and have a proper way, not a deprecated constraints, for specifying a list of values. Okay. So to elaborate for others, right now when you, for example, driving side, left and right, you have a constraint on the property to that is also used for suggestions when you make a new driving side property. If someday someone decides that driving in the middle is a great way of life, then that would be adjusted, that constraint, and then also the suggestions would improve for that. But in some cases, there is a bit of a not so great workaround with a deprecated constraint to make this work. Cool. The person who added clever to use that for the suggestions, do you want to elaborate a bit?
What I've seen, it has quite powerful auto-completion features, which can
Okay.
do things like this. So, for instance, showing what are the mostly used values for this instance of type,
Cool.
for instance. But I think we will see more in the presentation tomorrow.
Nice. So next step, go to the presentation tomorrow and see it live. It's a very good idea. Cool. Then let's quickly go back to the votes and see what the runner-up is. It seems to be this one by epidosis. Let's talk about this one a bit. Which was, how about creating a small gadget which allows to visualize a small graph like Wikidata Graph Builder when adding instance of or subclass of? Nikki has another suggestion for the previous one. Also rank the entity search results higher if they've been used with the property before. Yes. Okay, so small gadget, which allows to visualize a small graph like Wikidata Graph Builder when adding instance of or subclass of. Besides writing the gadget, we could start with creating a ticket, which describes what this gadget should do. How do you imagine it to work? Camilo, maybe you want to elaborate a bit?
So something like clicking a button which shows, for example, for the value that you have just added, which is the, let's say, the 2 levels up of the subclass, the 2 levels down of the ontology based on subclass of, something like that. I think it's sufficient.
So when you're making, once you save the new statement, it would show you.
Yeah. When you have saved, you can click about, maybe reload the item and then click a button and see which are the 2 levels up and the 2 levels down of the hierarchy of subclasses of the value that you chose for instance of or for subclass of. Better if you can see it already before saving, but I think it's more difficult. I try to start with low requests.
Both is totally on the table right now. But yes, granted, it would of course be nicer.
I would couple it with the other one, which is having a dedicated section for in the item for these properties, instance of and subclass of.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts on this one? We should also do this for other properties, such as occupation. Since I guess it has similar issues. Cool. If there is nothing else on this, we are almost at the end of the session. And Daria, do you want to talk a bit? No, first of all, thank you very much, everyone. This was super helpful. We will take this into the next steps. But Daria will talk a bit more about other ways to help, like signing up for our user research pool.
Yeah, sure. Just searching for a link to share in the document. So basically, we're always want to hear more from you, and also just in form of feedback and in form of studies that we're conducting, as I mentioned before, the interviews and the surveys that we're doing. And to get more invitations from the team, you can join the user participant pool, fill out some short survey about your experience, and then get the invitations for the studies that would be most relevant to your experience there. I'll quickly drop the link in the chat a bit later.
Thank you, Daria. All right. Are there any other questions for this session now, or should we wrap it up here for today and get ready for the next session? All right. Then, thank you very much, and see you in about 10 minutes for talking about automated list generation and how to make that better. Thank you, everyone.